Oh, there you are. I wanted to just have a talk with you right now. Um, I grew up in Englewood, Florida. I was born in Orlando. I could have been raised in uh, New Jersey, but somehow I wound up here in Florida. This is all decisions by my parents at the time. Growing up as a child, I was tossed around between my mother, my father, my grandparents, my aunt. So that's four places. And my mom was constantly moving. My dad was an alcoholic. Um, my aunt was stable. My grandfather was stable. If I would have just stayed in one stable home and taught correctly, I wouldn't have to be going through some struggles later in life. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not doing bad right now. Actually, I'm doing better than I ever have right now. This is the best I've ever been. In many phases, in all phases. And I see and I know within 3 years that I'm going to be very well off. But it took 40 plus years of lessons. And that's walking. It's funny because in the Bible it talks about how the Israelites were in the wilderness for 40 years. Just a weird coincidence there. It took me about 40 years, a little over 40 years to become emotionally mature, to see the truth in things, and I'm sure I'm going to see more truth. And I want you to take what I'm saying and apply it in your life as well, because from when I was born to when to 10, I was tossed around dad, mom, grandparents, dad, mom, and nobody believed me up until I was 15, 18. Nobody believed me that my dad was a bipolar, manic alcoholic. I mean, he would drink and he would leave the house for 3 days. I was 6 years old and my brother was 9 and dad was gone. And for some reason we didn't want to get dad in trouble, so we hacked it out. Me and my brother hacked it on our own. We ate food out of the can. And we didn't even know how to open the can. Like, I was 6. My brother had to open. I remember I was hungry one time, and I was trying to open the can. I was 6, and I cut my finger really bad with the can opener, on the can. So, from 0 to 10 was really rough years, even though it seemed like it wasn't. It was very rough because of my father, and I forgive him completely for it. But from 10 to 20, those are some better years. I had some stability. My mother started waking up. She started, getting a little older. She was 34, getting in her 30s or 40s, starting to wake up. And see things the way they should have. I got a son, I better take care of him. Now my brother, he met his wife when he was like 15, and they're still together today. And I'm happy for him. I'm happy that he's happy. But, and, he's doing his own thing, and I'm doing my own thing. And I know where I'm going. So, from 10 to 20, actually, I would say 15 to 20 were the best years, because I was not on drugs yet. I was in a healthy relationship with someone, and the problem then was I didn't know how to manage money. And I had to have the best of the best. I drove around the nicest car. I had a nice Honda Accord Sports Edition. I had a Mazda RX-7. I had to have the best clothes. I just was so worried about what other people thought of me. And that was where I messed that relationship up. Otherwise, we would have still been together. So, in my 20s, my dad was still drinking. But I still had no direction in life in my 20s. And then in my late 20s, I started getting into drugs. I started getting into Oxycontin. And I was on them for 5 years, 6 years. And I was an intravenous user. I started off, just taking it by mouth, and it got worse and worse and worse. And turned into a very severe addiction. So, from in my 20s, it started off good, and then the back end started the addiction. And then I was just using and using. I mean, you know how, I don't know if you particularly, but addicts, all they care about is getting their next fix. So for 5 or 6 years, every day was trying to get my next fix. And until I got caught. And I had never been in trouble. And I still to this day think that stupid county, first time ever being in trouble, sentenced me to pretty much an 8-year sentence. First time ever being in trouble. What I was doing was I'd go into, this is personal information, but it's reality. I was going into garages and taking a power tool and pawning it for like $50 to $100. I did that for 2 or 3 months, and finally it caught up with me. So I got a 3 years in, 5 years out, which is 3 years probation, 3 years in prison, 5 years on probation. So I did the 3 years in. I had no choice. I was clean. And like I wrote on my ex post the other day, the devil roams around like a roaring lion. Well, I met a girl, and she was on the stuff that I went into prison for, and it started all over again. And I couldn't do probation, so a split sentence, when they say 3 and 5, is really an 8-year sentence. So I did 3 years, and got out on probation, met a girl, relapsed, and then violated probation, and then I went on the run. I ran up north, but my conscience was like, I can't have a warrant for my arrest the rest of my life. So my grandmother talked me into turning myself in this little podunk town in Georgia. I'll never forget it. It was this little tiny jail that is kind of like one of those jails you see in the movies. Like one of those old country jails. And I keep saying, I'm not used to making speeches, but my life story is, if I had time, it could go on for hours, but I'm trying to speed it up here. So my grandmother, I was in a hotel that my grandfather was paying for in Georgia. It was freezing outside. I was at this cheap hotel. There was all kinds of drugs being done around at that hotel. There was hookers, and so I would just lock myself in the room and mind my own business. So I stayed there for a week, and there was a payphone outside. There were cell phones at that time, but they weren't like they are today. But I didn't have a cell phone. My grandfather had an 800 number because he was the vice president of AT&T. So he could have free anything phone-wise, cellular or landline, which he had both. But I called them up one day, and my grandma, she convinced me to turn myself in. So I walked from that hotel to the nearest jail and I walked up to the front. I said, I have a warrant. I want to turn myself in. And I remember I can still see it in my head, the whole jail. It was a couple darker skinned ladies and a couple guards, and she's like, okay, let me run an NCIC on you and give us a minute. Go ahead, sit in the lobby, which wasn't really a lobby. It was just like a wooden bench in the front there. She goes, yep, you got a warrant out of Florida. And I was like, okay, I knew it. And she's like, I don't know if Florida's going to come pick you up. And I was like, they're going to come get me. Trust me. They're going to come get me. She's like, well, they have 24 hours to come get you. So I sat in the cell there and waited and waited and waited. And they waited till the last hour. I remember I was sleeping. And I hear, Simmons, Florida's here to get you. So you know what Florida did to me? They picked me up cuffed me behind my back, put chains on both of my hands, put my hands behind my back, chains all the way down to my legs, and you can only walk like 2 feet per steps. So I'm like inching along, and Florida drives me around the whole country picking up and dropping off prisoners for a week. I was in this van for a week. You talk about pain. People were pissing. They were only allowed to stop once every 6 hours. There was 2 drivers. One would sleep for some time. They'd pull over on the side of the road. The guy would wake up. He'd get in the seat and start driving. So we did stop. They would drive 12-hour shifts. So I think we stopped at like 2 jails and stayed overnight. One was in North Carolina, where they put us next to the psych ward. But I was so tired. A bomb could have went off. I wouldn't have woken up. But the psych ward people in North Carolina, they were banging on the windows and throwing crap on the walls and pissing all over the place. But they fed us well in North Carolina, like real good. I was surprised. I was like, wow. Another thing is, for food, while I was in the van, even though it was very painful, they stopped at McDonald's and everybody would get 2 cheeseburgers for lunch. And McDonald's seemed to be like where we ate on the road. You get 2 cheeseburgers and a water. So I'm in the van for, I couldn't believe it. It was so painful sitting in a van for a week driving. And the van the seats are made of steel. They're not cushioned. There's no cushioned seats in those vans. It's straight steel. Males in the back, females in the front. There's a gate in the middle. And finally, we made it back to Florida. And it was like the biggest relief. So I did 5 years in prison after I just did 3. So that was 8 years. But still, I got out of it. I did 5 years. And I relapsed again. But this time I was smart enough to know to not steal, because I wasn't going back to prison. I got caught driving unsuspended a couple times, went to jail for a year. Anyways, that was 25 to 35. And then from 35 to 33 to 38, I got into another serious relationship, and I was an addict then. And that ruined that relationship. So I would have been with her. If I wasn't an addict. I was stupid decisions. But so then after that, I go and live with my mom because I have no idea how to live life. I did 8 years in prison, get out. I'm right into a serious relationship. I was doing well. I worked at a company. I worked my way up to a regional management. It was the highest position I could get in the company. And I remember one day I just pulled the truck over and I just started bawling my eyes out because I knew that I could do better than that. And I worked so hard to get to this position where I can go to work. I was like, I didn't wear a suit and tie, but I wore slacks and a button-up shirt. And I had the authority to fire and hire. I was the man, of the region of this statewide company. But I was miserable inside, miserable, and it affected my relationship with the girl I was with. It affected it, and on top of that, the pressure from that job. That's when I relapsed. So I moved back in with my mom. And I'm skipping a lot of details here because you're talking about 45 years, 46 years of life here. I moved back in with my mom. I just gotten out of jail from driving on a suspended. And she's cooking for me. I have no idea how to cook, by the way. Olive Garden does, though. So I'm living with my mom, and I'm trying to figure out what I want to do with my life. So I started. I was in. I was doing landscaping, and I did it for 5 years, and I decided to start my own business. Now, if I had my own truck and trailer at that time, I would be set right now. Right now, I would have my own home. I'd have a family. But God didn't want that to happen at the time. For some reason. I can't question him. But I started my own business called Lucky's Lawn Service. I had business cards made up, and I knew all the landscapers in the area, and they would throw me accounts that they couldn't handle. So I did. In the first month, I had 10 clients already, and it's rapidly growing. And I didn't have a truck and trailer. I just had a push mower and a nice weed eater and a nice brand new weed eater and a brand new blower, a Stihl, that I bought with my own money. And that person has it in his garage right now, which he can keep. So I'm living with my mom, and she gets cancer, and she's only 60, and I'm in my 30s. This wasn't very long ago. This was 5-6 years ago. She gets cancer, and I wish I would have known now what I might have been able to save her life with ivermectin and fenbendazole. I could have saved her life, but they chose the route of chemo and radiation. that is the worst thing for you to. If you ever watch somebody go through it, it's the worst thing to watch, and it's the saddest thing to see someone suffer like that. Anyways, my mom passes, and my friend Brant, he happened to get a DUI. And my mom was still alive when this happened. I moved in with my friend. I'll name him Brant. And my mom was still alive at this time. I always used to ask her, "Are you gonna be all right, Mom?" She's like, "I hope, I hope, I hope." And every time I go over there, I would see these letters that, you know, Farley Funeral Home, and I'm like, "Mom, why is this here?" She's like, "Oh, they just send those." I don't think she wanted to tell me she was dying, but it's just weird because the last time I saw her, and I don't want to say this. But I'm driving away, and she walks out, and she's really sick. And I look back in the rearview mirror, and she's waving goodbye. And that was the last time I saw her. So, I go back to Brant's. I was living with him because I was driving for him to help him with his company because he had gotten a DUI. And I drove him for a year so he wouldn't lose his business. I stayed with him for a few years. And here I am. Here I am. Doing better than I ever have. I don't know how. Certain things happened. And there's more things to come that are really going to catapult the progression of what's going on right now that I have no control over. And that's why I'm seeing all these. If you go on my, I post mostly on X. That's why I'm seeing all these numbers and letters that just are very, very strange, and it's not coincidence. I promise you, it's not coincidence. But the moral of the story is, with what I've been through, it's like I've been through a war. I mean, prison was not easy. Prison was a test of patience, and you know, I saw somebody get murdered. I saw a guard get killed. Somebody got murdered right next to me. Stabbed to death right next to me. I don't know if most people haven't experienced things like I have. But when you see somebody bleed out next to you, you can smell the iron in the air. And it's a scream like I've never heard. When somebody is in pure, like, real fear, it's a scream that I'll never forget. Did I get in many fights in prison? I got into 3, and I didn't lose, and I'm not proud of it, but I had to defend myself. It was always that way. Or, there was like one time in prison, well, maybe that'll be another video, prison video, but I'm here now, and I know for a fact that I'm going up now. I mean, for decades I was heading down, and it kind of went like here, and now I'm like right here. It's like a plane getting ready to take off, and I don't understand it. How things have worked out, and the timing of things. After my mom was like, she was like, home base. You got a problem, you call mom. Now I have nobody to call. Who am I gonna call? Ghostbusters? I give it to God. I really do. With intention. I give it to Him. And it works out every time. Every time. So, in your life, if you're going through anything, sickness, addictions, anything, give it to God. He can do anything. If He can fix me, He can fix you. I promise you. I should be dead. I'm serious. I've knocked on death's door. Trust me. Plenty of times I've knocked on death's door. I've had guns pulled on me. I've had guns pulled on me many times. Right in my freaking face. And I said, shoot that. Pull that trigger. I dare you. And it kind of reminds me, it's kind of weird how Trump, got shot in the ear. And I was wondering for a while, was that a staged setup? But it really wasn't. That was not a stage setup. Somebody was really trying to kill him. How does a marksman, and I mean, the kid, the guy that shot at him, missed him by a half an inch. And that's how God works. He knew that what was going to happen that day. It's very strange. We don't understand it, but God can protect you from bullets. He can protect you from anything. He can sorry, I had a little tear up earlier. He can protect you from anything. He can save you from anything. So here I am today, and maybe one day I'll make a video about my prison stories. Those are entertaining. But I just wanted to have a little moment and a word with you, the world, about what's, how God has really done some very great things in my life, because I've given it to Him, literally. I mean, yes, I've got to take action on things, but when I take action, things line up. Like, it'll be a mess. In my mind, it looks like a mess, but to Him, He knows exactly what to do. Like, How am I going to get this? How am I going to get that? I get it. I got it. I'm good. All right. So, next time I get on here, I'll tell you about my prison stories. There's some pretty messed up stuff that happens in there. It's worse than the circus. It's hell in there. And it's also a test of your will and your power, not only physically, but mentally and spiritually. All right. Have a good night.